Hi guys, welcome to Random Musing with Shali. And today we're going to be looking at the story of God's creation, and we'll be looking at the three major characters involved in the story, especially in the fall of man, and that's Adam, Eve, and the serpent. We're going to be looking at each of them in isolation. We'll look at what went through their minds. We'll also look at what could have been done better. We'll look at their actions, their inactions, and we can at some point we'll liken it to today's world and see how the lessons that we can learn from their actions or inactions. Stay tuned and stay blessed. So what happened? On the sixth day, God created Adam. Before that, he had created other creatures, the sea creatures, the firmaments, the heavens, the earth, and so many other things, the trees and everything. And then he created Adam on the sixth day. And then Adam, he even gave him the sole rights, to name all the other animals and all of that. They were his companion at some point. They were ruling together. But God, being a kind God, being a very he tends to our needs. He even knows our needs more than ourselves. He noticed that, like say, Bros Adam wasn't really feeling himself. He wasn't, there was something missing. And then he said, it's not good for man to be alone. And then he put Adam to deep sleep. And from there, from the rib of Adam, he created Eve. And when Adam woke up, it was like God knew, God had just answered his prayers. And he was like, hey, this is the bone of my bone and the flesh of my flesh. And he also named her woman. It shows that he was delighted, about the G God had just provided for him. And they were both naked, and neither was ashamed. Don't let's also forget the instruction God gave to Adam before Eve came into the picture, that out of all these trees you can eat, but this certain or particular tree, I don't want you to even near it. I don't want you to taste out of it, lest you shall die. Now, let's go to the fall of man, which happened in chapters 3. The serpent was clearly jealous and envious of the relationship God had with man, and he had been looking for ways to destroy that relationship. So when Eve came into the picture, I'm sure he even became more jealous. And then he was like, okay, out of these two beings, well, we're inferring now that out of these two beings, who is more difficult to convince, or who will be more susceptible to deceit, to be deceived? And then two of these options, I would think, might likely point to Eve. And then one day, Eve was all by herself, and then the serpent thought, oh, this is the time to strike. And then he went to meet her and said, has God indeed said, thou shalt not eat of every tree of the garden? And Eve was not like, no. He's just told us that we shouldn't touch a certain tree, that if we eat it or if we touch it, he even included touch, lest, you die, lest they die. And the serpent was like, no, now. If you taste it, you just know the difference between good and evil. That's it. And you might even be like God. Now, the scenario I think might have been playing out in Eve's mind or head could be that of curiosity. She might be wondering, okay, did God really say this thing? More so, it was even her husband that passed the instruction to her. Like, okay, did God really say this? And she was like, when she even moved closer, like, women, we like beautiful things. We like things that are very attractive, unique. I'm like, this thing looks beautiful. It's very pretty. Let me have a taste. And then it could also be that it will also be like God, that desire to have wisdom, that desire to, because women, we are very strong-willed, we're very determined, we're very optimistic, futuristic. We are goal-getters, most of us. Well, a whole lot of women are goal-getters. It could also be that Eve was like, if I eat these fruits now, I will have wisdom. And as a woman, she wants to have wisdom. And then she ate the fruit. Now, what could have been going through Adam's mind? He must have been like, I love this girl so much. I love this babe so much. The fear of losing Eve could possibly have been one of the reasons he ate it. Or it could also be that he was underestimating the consequences of what would happen. Like, maybe it's God now. They've been rolling with God almost on a daily basis. I'm like, maybe it's Baba God now. And then he's thinking, maybe they're not going to die. And if they die, God has the power to raise them up again. Maybe something like that could have been going through his mind. Or it could also be that of confusion, like, and also the same desire to also, to have wisdom. Because another scenario that comes to my mind is if the tables were turned around, if it was Adam that ate the fruit first and then offered it to Eve, would Eve, have taken the fruit from Adam? Would she have collected that fruit? A part of me is thinking no, because sometimes if we women believe in something, we can believe it to the letter. We are very adamant, and sometimes it might be like, except some cases where the love for your partner too might override that belief. So, but it might be like she'd be like, no, God has, especially if she was the one that was given the instruction, she might not have taken that fruit. It's still all it's a possibility anyways. Sadly, both of them ate the fruit and they put all of us in this mess today. Anyways, they had to sew fig leaves eventually to cover themselves up. And then when God now came, his usual, visit to see his children, they had to hide themselves. And God called out to Adam as the head of the family. Adam, where are you? And then he said, he's in hiding. He had to hide himself. I was like, why are you hiding yourself? And because he's naked. Who told you that you are naked? And then he said, did you eat out of the fruit that I told you not to eat of? And then he said, yes, that the wife you gave me the fruits to eat. And then God said, Eve, why would you do this? Eve also, started blaming the serpent. So they started passing the buck. None wanted to take responsibility, which takes us to the third on our agenda for today. How can we liken it to today's world? We do the exact same thing. The forbidden fruits that God has told us not to eat are the things that become attractive to us. Those are the things that we tend to, yield to or want to move towards. And we can find it in our everyday world. It happens every single day. Number 2, the desire or the thirst for authority and power. We can see that everywhere in the world, not just amongst our leaders, but we can see it running, in our day-to-day world, in our offices and everywhere. Everyone just wants to be at the top. In some cases, by all means, some people even trample on other people so they can get to the top. And the third thing is that the people are even questioning whether God is real now. They are questioning God's authority. They are questioning God's existence. So we can see that play out in today's world, because at some point Eve was saying, did God really? Did God say? All those things which we do in today's world. Another thing I can pick up is that we do these blame shifting games, like people tend not to want to take responsibility, where Adam was saying, it wasn't me. Eve too was pointing fingers at the serpent and all of that. So in today's world, the same thing that happened that most of us keep pointing at, it was our forefathers that brought us into this, deep shit, are things that are actually playing too in our own times. Let's go back to the story and look at what they could have done better, or what I think they could have done better. Number 1 was to apologize. I couldn't read or hear from the Bible that they apologized. Adam did not say he was sorry, and he was not remorseful. Rather, he was passing the buck. He was doing the blame shifting game. If he had apologized, probably, maybe his punishment could have been lightened, or things could have been different. So it was not apologetic. It was just giving reasons why he committed the atrocity. Then number 2, I think he shouldn't have waited for God to calm down. He should have sought God's face, sought his attention, tried to get his face before coming down in the evening to see that, to let God know that he has goofed. He and his family had goofed. None of that was put into place. So I think what they could have done better, both of them, was they could have, even after they've goofed, they could have tried to salvage the situation by trying to seek God's face, by being apologetic and remorseful. And also, before they ate the fruit, I think Adam, who was given the sole instruction, should have stood his ground, because he had been with God even before Eve came into the picture. He should have been able to stand his ground and not eat the fruit, and see how, he could speak to God on Eve's behalf to see how she can be restituted, or how she can be, saved. Lessons we can learn from the story of Adam and Eve's fall, the fall of man. Number 1, when God gives you an instruction, follow it to the letter, even though it doesn't make sense to other people, even though other people cannot see the sense behind the instructions. As long as the instruction is from God, follow it to the letter. the story of the prophet in the Bible, in the Old Testament, where God gave him an instruction and told him to deliver a message to the king, and told him not to return the same way he came. But because another prophet came and told him that, oh, you can stay back, eat and do this, and then he went back the same way, and then he was eaten by, I think, lions or thereabouts. That's just a little bit of digression, but it's just to say that when God gives an instruction, he expects you as his child to follow it to the letter, whether it makes sense or not. That's one. Two, carrying the whole family about regarding a vision is very important. It's paramount, and it cannot be overemphasized. Adam was given an instruction. It is expected that he would pass across that instruction in clear terms. So when, as the head of the home now, if you're given an instruction, it is expected that everyone has a clear understanding. Every member of the family has a clear understanding of what is expected of them from that vision or of the vision. So it's not just to say that there's a vision, but do people understand that vision? And are they able to, follow that vision through so that people don't miss out on what God has for them? Ensuring that the statement is clear to everyone. Thirdly, I believe that if you goof or if you make a mistake, God is there to always welcome you back with open arms. All these blame shifting games is not necessary. You have made a mistake, you have made a mistake. God is a loving God, and he loves unconditionally. I would expect that once you make a mistake as his child, God is not going to kill you because you have made a mistake. He's ready to accept you, with his arms wide open. So these are the lessons I personally think we can take away from the story of Adam and Eve's fall, or the man's fall. I'd like to hear your thoughts. I'd like to hear your views regarding the story of God's creation and the fall of man. I'd like us to learn together. Any additions, multiplications, subtraction is welcomed. And until next time, we shall be discussing another Bible character. Stay blessed and keep trusting God.